Hi there, welcome back to Books and Tea with Sarah. I'm yours truly, and today I'm drinking water. I'm filming this before I have to get to work today, so I'm short on time and didn't have time to make tea. In today's video, I wanted to share with you my thoughts on Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. As per usual, I will start with a non-spoiler review and a summary of the book, and then I'll move on to my spoiler thoughts on the book. So first, a little bit about the book. Matthew and Marilla Cuthbert, brother and sister, tend to their family farm, Green Gables, and now that they aren't as spry as they used to be, they intend to adopt an orphan boy to help them out. But when they send a neighbor to get the orphan boy for them, and she comes back with Anne Shirley, they're left with a decision to make. Do they care for and raise Anne Shirley, who's very whimsical and imaginative and very different from themselves, or do they send her back in exchange for the boy that they wanted? So as far as the writing of this book, I really enjoyed L.M. Montgomery's writing. I appreciated that it was just as whimsical as Anne's voice was. I don't know if this was on purpose or if that's just Montgomery's writing style, but I definitely enjoyed reading her descriptions. As for the characters, I love Anne. I always have loved Anne, and I always will. The relationships that she develops with Matthew and Marilla and even some of the other people in Avonlea are so easy to fall in love with. There's also a lot of development with all the characters because the story does take place over a few years, and so I really enjoyed reading that, and just watching them all grow together is so wonderful. Now, I will admit that the plot made it a little difficult for me to get through the book. The overarching plot line is that Marilla and Matthew adopted Anne, so it's a little bit boring. And then the rest of the events in the book are fairly episodic, so each chapter has its own kind of plot line, and it doesn't connect with the rest of the chapters until probably halfway through the book, or more than halfway through the book. I think part of this might be due to the fact that it was written in a different time period that I'm not used to reading, but I still enjoyed a lot of the plot lines. It was just hard for me because they didn't connect very well. Overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this book. It was so nice getting to experience one of my favorite characters in her original form, and I definitely look forward to reading the rest of the series. I gave this book 5 stars. Now I'm going to talk about my more spoiler thoughts on the book. So if you've read the book or you don't mind being spoiled, then stick around. Otherwise, stop watching this video, go read the book, and then come back so that we can talk about it some more. I think my all-time favorite scene from the movie is when Gilbert saves Anne under the bridge, and I loved reading that scene just as much. I feel like you really start to see their romance begin at this point, and despite the fact that Anne is outwardly bullheaded in this scene, she definitely starts to change inward. And I think it also helps that Marilla told her about the fact that Marilla had a similar relationship with Gilbert's father, which I didn't know about. So I think Anne kind of took this story, reflected on it, and began to change her behavior because she didn't want the same outcome for herself. I think out of all the characters, I loved the development that Marilla went through the most. She really softened to Anne and just tried to accept her for who she was instead of trying to change her. And I think this really helps the reader sympathize with Anne when she decides to stay at Green Gables instead of go to college. So I really can't talk about this book without talking about Matthew's chapter. I cried through the whole thing. I definitely expected it. I mean, I cried through the scene in the movie every single time I see the movie, so I expected it. I think part of it had to do with the fact that at the end of the previous chapter, Matthew says something to Anne or to himself that makes me think that he and Marilla are really similar to my grandparents who recently passed away, so it was definitely a little close to home for me. And finally, I'm a complete romantic, so at the end of the book, I was a little disappointed that it didn't end more romantically between Anne and Gilbert, but I guess that's just something for me to look forward to in the rest of the books. Now, I do want to give a couple of notes on the adaptations. First of all, the 1980s film adaptation I didn't realize was so close to the book. It made reading the book a little boring because I knew everything that was going to happen. There weren't any surprises. And it also made me realize that the movie didn't really try to make the story its own in any way. But at the same time, it was really refreshing to see that the film adaptation was so close to the book. As for the Netflix adaptation, I've only seen the first episode, so I can't say too much. And you bet that I'm gonna watch the entire first season and then come back here and share all my thoughts after reading the book and watching the season. But so far, this is what I've gathered from the first episode. I really like the actress. I think she's incredibly talented, but I'm not the biggest fan of her interpretation of Anne. I feel like the actress who plays Anne is a lot more earnest and intense with her interpretation, whereas I grew up watching an Anne that was incredibly whimsical and almost flighty, and I definitely felt that whimsical aspect while I was reading the book as well. Something I do like about the adaptation is that I appreciate that it dives into Anne's darker history. I think this is vastly important to understanding Anne and why her behaviors and responses are the way they are. I can't remember remember if the movie explores this history with Anne, but I guess that just means that I'm in for a rewatch this weekend. So that's it for my thoughts on Anne of Green Gables. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on the book if you read it. Thanks for watching, and subscribe if you want to see more bookish content from me. Until next time, I'll talk to you all in the comments. Bye!